Shalom again, everybody. Rabbi Ariel here from the KosherTorah School, found online at www.koshertorah.com. I want to again bring you one of my written lessons that I make available to our KosherTorah School supporting students on the topic of angels and demons, making the supernatural natural and the paranormal normal. In light of everything that we've been sharing and discussing, of course, within the greater context of the prophetic Kabbalah, the nature of what's really going on in current events, and the necessity of outreach to try to, build bridges between those of us who really naturally, spiritually belong together. It's important, and I believe obligatory, actually, to share elements of the sacred Torah, the teachings that we have here that are universal in nature and need to be heard by, understood by, and God be willing when it comes to it, practiced by all those kindred souls. I mean, this is the time. So, in light of that, I offer you this lesson. I pray that you'd sit back and pay attention and learn a bit. And I hope that you'll like it. If so, click that like button that we're, supposed to do here, and subscribe to our channel, and please help support the cause. So with no further ado, I bring to you Angels and Demons, Making the Supernatural Natural and the Paranormal Normal. The laws of nature are no mere suggestions. The laws of nature cannot be violated without consequence. The laws of nature direct everything that is natural. Belief in them is irrelevant. One who breaks the laws of nature will have to contend with the consequences, regardless of one's belief in or denial of these things. And now, let us expand this understanding. There are entire segments of natural reality which are completely unknown to modern human beings and which are undetectable to the machinery of modern technology. There is not just one, but multiple levels of nature out there which we do not see nor know. The materialist response to this lack of knowledge is simple denial. If we don't see it or detect it, then it's not real. And so they say. But they are wrong. There is much out there unseen and unknown that we call by a name other than natural. We call it the supernatural. The official position of those who proclaim to know things is that there is nothing natural about the supernatural. But just because something is not defined as being natural by us today does not make it to not exist. That which we call the paranormal very much does exist. And unlike that which we call the supernatural, the paranormal can be seen and is very much detectable. And strange as it may seem to some, but the paranormal and the supernatural tend to be one and the same thing. What we learned from this is that the natural and the supernatural are two aspects of the same reality. And the normal and the paranormal are equally two aspects of the same reality. The dividing line between the two does not exist in nature. The dividing line that separates the natural and normal from the supernatural and the paranormal is simply the boundaries of human consciousness. In other words, reality for us is limited to our material perceptions. Our experiences of life, the universe, and everything is very, very limited. It is no wonder then that our concepts and perspectives of reality are as limited as is the closed mind of the unimaginative materialist thinker. So when we come to discuss the laws of nature, we must include within this discussion the laws of the supernatural along with the natural. For although the material mind does not see, comprehend, or even acknowledge the supernatural, there are other human minds of higher sensitivity and experience that indeed have expanded the boundaries of knowing the natural into those realms which others of lesser sensitivity still call the supernatural. Everything that I say here should be well known and acknowledged by most. For those who are so inclined to expand their own boundaries and to bring the understanding of the supernatural into the natural and that of the paranormal into the normal, then there are certain things that one needs to do. Let us now discuss some of these things and see how we can expand consciousness into ever expanding awareness of what is natural and normal. Expanding consciousness requires of an individual two things. The first is the experience of that which expands consciousness, and the second is the understanding of what it is that one is experiencing. Many people from all over the world and throughout all generations have experienced the supernatural and the paranormal from time to time. Yet alongside the experiences, there remains the lack of understanding them. Individuals pass through these experiences none the wiser about them, and thus the supernatural and the paranormal remain outside the realms of belief, regardless of one's personal experiences to the opposite. It is most likely true that a substantial percentage of the human population has at one time or another experienced the supernatural and the paranormal. But being that these experiences go unrecognized, or worse, denied or ignored, the understanding of them remains in the dark. So we must draw an inevitable conclusion, one that by itself will begin the dawning of greater consciousness. If paranormal experiences are experienced by a large number of people, if not the majority of people at one time or another, then just how paranormal are they? If, after all, so many people are having paranormal experiences of one sort or another, then we must conclude that these experiences, due to their widespread presence, are entirely normal and not paranormal at all. Indeed, our boundaries of understanding the natural, supernatural, or normal, paranormal divide takes a giant leap forward with this insight. The paranormal is normal. It is just that certain societal powers that be, those who control things, do not want the masses to believe their own experiences and to thus accept a lie as being true. It is easy to dismiss something that is out of the control as being myth or fantasy or a delusion. In this way, such realities do not need to be confronted. However, our experiences are real, and they do expose us to realities beyond that which we presently understand. And if we wish to ever understand our own personal experiences and the realities to which we are exposed, then our obvious necessary first step is to acknowledge the reality of them and to then seek a realistic understanding of them, even when such explanations expose us to new and previously unseen truths and greater realities. We can look back into history and see in the scriptures of the world religions numerous encounters with what we presently call the supernatural and the paranormal. Many of these ancient scriptures contain narratives about encounters with intelligent, non-human beings who interact with mortal human beings for a while and then disappear in what seems to be supernatural ways. In religion, many of these beings are called angels, and we ascribe to them all types of understandings that our individual religions teach about them. How is one to ascertain if what this religion or that teaches about angels is or is not real? First, we must accept the reality of angels. And next, one must ask, what is the nature of this reality that we seek to accept? In other words, if an angel is a real being, then just what kind of being is it? Identifying angels at present tends to be a difficult, if not impossible, task, without the presence of a real live angel to examine and to interview. If we wish to accept the reality of angels, then we must begin by formatting what exactly do we believe to be true about them. If we start with the premise that angels are not of this earth and that they come from some nebulous place called heaven, then their non-human origins categorize them as not being terrestrial beings of our earth. And whether one likes it or not, those beings who are not terrestrial beings of this earth are by definition extraterrestrial beings, not of this earth. Like it or not, angels are extraterrestrials. They're not make-believe fairy tale creatures. Being real, we need to inquire how it can be that we can expand our understanding about them. We've taken a good first step. We've taken the belief in angels out of the realm of the supernatural and into the realm of the natural. Now, let us explore what else exists within our present understanding of the natural that might grant us access to real living angels with whom we can interact and thereby examine and interview them. Do we really have what is required to communicate with real angels who are not make-believe figments of our imagination, but who are real extraterrestrials? Yeah, we do. In order to dialogue with an angel in reality and not in fiction, one must first learn to speak angelic. In other words, we terrestrial human beings need to learn to communicate in an extraterrestrial language. But is such a thing possible? After all, how is anyone supposed to learn an extraterrestrial language? Where could one go to acquire such a skill? Little do we realize that our ability to speak angelic does not need to come to us from outside of ourselves. We are already biologically built to receive their incoming transmissions. All that we need to learn is how to personally broadcast our communications, and then how to recognize the dialogue as it proceeds. As is made clear throughout all the ancient scriptures, communications between terrestrial humans and extraterrestrial beings, some of whom we now recognize as being the angels of ancient times, takes place through mind-to-mind communications, that which today we call telepathy. Telepathic communications with angels and with other beings go on around us all the time. This is a normal occurrence, not a paranormal one. As such, it is natural and thus not supernatural. With this being said, we need to now examine the nature of this communication and to see if we can recognize elements of it in our own personal lives and experiences. Telepathy is direct mind-to-mind communication without the need for an external expression such as language and words. Thus, any being with a mind can communicate with any other kind of being with a mind, regardless of species or space or time. In other words, beings not like ourselves can communicate with us, and we can understand them in a universal language of thought that goes far beyond the limitation of language and words to get across what it is that one wishes to share. Let me provide here an example. Let us say that I want to communicate with an octopus who lives in the ocean. Needless to say, our octopus does not speak any human language, nor does he have the physical ability to form words or sounds like we do. So how can the octopus communicate with us and us with him? Let us say that the octopus has the strength of thought to project what he is thinking, feeling, and experiencing at the moment directly into your mind. For that moment, you would experience yourself to be an octopus. You would feel the ocean water around you. You would feel having a body with multiple arms with tentacles. You would see as the octopus sees, and you would sense all that he senses. In that brief moment, when you experience octopus reality, you would understand everything about what it feels like to be an octopus. And more, for that brief moment, You think like an octopus, and you understand octopus thought. For this brief moment, you understand octopus. This is how real telepathy works. Real telepathy is not just a communication of a thought as if to share words. Real telepathy is far more than this. With real telepathy, one senses the being of the other and knows it far more than what mere words describe. Telepathy is more of an experience than it is just an expression of an idea. This is why real telepathic communication is very hard to imitate. One can easily imagine hearing a voice in one's mind saying that it's coming from an octopus, but it's something quite different to actually feeling octopusness in one's being. The level of intensity between the two cannot be confused. Seeing is believing. If I see something with my own eyes, I thus experience it directly. No one can then unsee that which one sees. I know a thing to be true because I've seen it directly. Others may challenge the reality of what it is that I see, but my experience convinces me that I am right, and that anyone who challenges me with regards to my experience is wrong. My experience has convinced me of the truth of what I see, and thus no other outside voice can contradict my internal reality. Therefore, when I have an authentic experience of telepathic communication, although others cannot equally experience it as I have, I still recognize the validity of my own experiences, regardless of the disbelief from others. When one communicates with an extraterrestrial being, one experiences a sense of being taken outside of one's body and actually being in the presence of an other and the strange environment that that other inhabits. Often this experience is called a vision. It is often a rich and vibrant emotional experience, the likes of which one cannot dismiss or ignore as mere fantasy. Being that these experiences are visual in nature, they communicate a depth of reality that mere words find it hard to describe. Being that this type of telepathic experience includes the experiential element, which is most often visually based, we need now to take a moment to discuss the nature of the visual element and understand why and how it is activated under these circumstances. We human beings exist in dual realities simultaneously. We live in the external world, which we share with everyone else, and we live in our own exclusive private inner world, which we call our own minds. We know and experience that the attraction towards our inner worlds of thoughts, dreams, and imagination can sometimes overwhelm even the strongest attractions from the outside world. So which world is real? Or maybe is it better to ask which world is more real than the other? This is often a very difficult question to answer. Inner reality for the individual is very much real and is sometimes even more real than outside reality. This experience is well documented and has led us to understanding the power of the mind in all new ways. We human beings interact with both worlds, the internal one and the external one, through the medium of individual perception. In essence, what one experiences defines one's reality. Added to this is the power of thought and persuasion. One can look at a thing, experience it personally, and yet be told by others, even by one's own thoughts, that what one is seeing and experiencing is not real. Regardless of all the perceptions to the opposite, one often convinces oneself that one's own experiences are not real. This denial of one's perceptions is often one's experiences with internal realities whose presences are so real that they challenge the reality of the external world. Sometimes a confused, chaotic combination of emotions and thoughts bursts into one's conscious mind from seemingly out of nowhere, filling one with thoughts of dread, confusion, paranoia, and the like. Needless to say, such experiences are indications of what we call a mental illness. The clouded, chaotic, and fearful conditions are the usual symptoms that manifest. When one manifests such a condition, one truly is in need of care from a mental health professional, religious or secular, one who can then try to unravel the chaos and confusion arising out of one's subconscious mind. This process can take a while. Today, we call this process psychoanalysis. In the past, every spiritual tradition had their own guidance for their practitioners, guiding them through repressed and often harmful psychological elements residing within their own souls. Such a process in Kabbalah is called tikkun hanefesh, rectification of the soul. This consisted of a course of academic study, advising the student about what is proper moral behavior, and this is followed up by the student living that chosen lifestyle of righteousness and morality. In this internal place of psychic balance, one then pursues practices of meditation that bring one into contact with one's internal realities. When one's internal storms, clouds, and fire erupt, one is well trained to know and understand how one is to best work through these mental disturbances, bringing one to a state of inner peace, thus enabling the student to delve deeper into one's personal unconscious to the point of transcending it, granting one access to higher dimensions of consciousness. This was, and is, the path walked by the biblical prophets. Working through one's personal subconscious repressions and other psychic content in order for one to make inner peace with oneself is the path to mental wellness and the only true cure for mental illness. While this path is well known and practiced in spiritual circles, it is almost unknown today within secular circles, who treat mental illness as a biological disorder to be treated with medication. Now, it is true that the psychiatric medications used today are a blessing from God. They enable emotionally unstable individuals to establish and maintain some semblance of internal emotional balance, thus enabling them to interact with the external world in a positive way. For the secular who do not understand nor experience higher dimensions of consciousness, these results are all that can be hoped for, and thus this is all that they strive for. In and of itself, this is certainly not a bad thing, but it's unfortunately a very limited thing. Psychiatric medications are a God-sent blessing. Still, they only serve like a Band-Aid over the problem. These medications cannot and do not address the real problem, thus bringing to it a cure. A cure for mental illness must come about by addressing its internal causes, those which are not physically based, but rather psychically based. For this, one needs a good psychotherapist who, in the world of spirituality, is often one's spiritual guide or mentor. Now, let us return to address the perceptions and realities of one's internal world. One of the great sources of mental illness in modern secular society is not one's acceptance and embrace of inner realities, but rather one's denial and rejection of them. One's inner self knows one's entire self much better than what one's own conscious mind thinks. One's unconscious mind knows both parts of oneself, the inner and the outer, and therefore seeks to direct one's conscious self based upon an inner knowing of what is right and good for the individual, both internally and externally. One who listens to one's inner self and lives at peace with one's own inner intuition and knowing usually has a peaceful mind and thus leads a peaceful life. The opposite is also true. One who does not know one's inner self and who does not pay attention to one's inner reality, repressing it, denying it, often ends up leading a life that is far away from a state of balance between one's internal and external realities. Spirituality exists specifically to address this state of individual imbalance and to guide the individual practitioner back to wholeness. What should be clear by now is that individual wholeness is only accomplished when one is being true to oneself and, as such, living a relatively successful life in this external world. For one thing is certain, regardless of how successful one is in this external world, unless one is balanced and successful in one's internal world, one will never fully enjoy the benefits of the external world. The depths of one's inner reality, which resides in the unconscious, is what enables one to tap into the other streams of consciousness outside of one's association with this physical world. The conscious mind is what connects one to the external world. The unconscious mind is what connects one to the internal world. Both are equal, natural, and normal. However, being that the unconscious mind acts in its own way, speaks in its own language, and exposes one's consciousness to other alternative realities, the revelations of the unconscious mind are often associated with the supernatural and the paranormal. But as we have learned, the only thing that creates the definition of natural and supernatural is the present level, the consciousness of the observer. One's inner reality is brought to one by one's very own access point into the collective unconsciousness of all humanity. There is nothing supernatural nor paranormal about the unconscious mind. The unconscious mind is not limited by either space or time. It exists in relationship to its own parameters and natural laws. Maybe from our present limited perspective, we view certain powers of the mind to be supernatural and paranormal, but nothing could be further from the truth. Everything about the mind, regardless of which part we speak, be it the conscious mind associated with this reality, or the unconscious which resides in its own reality, everything is natural and normal. It is only our present state of limited consciousness that creates the artificial barriers to declare an unknown part of ourselves to be supernatural and paranormal. There are higher dimensions. We experience them every day. Although we call them supernatural and paranormal, there's nothing super or para about them. The invisible realms around us are as natural and normal as is the visible realm around us too. We need to acknowledge this fact and then proceed, each person on an individual basis, to expand consciousness so as to break down these artificial barriers and to reunite the natural and the supernatural into the one true reality which it truly is. The human race, and each of us individually, are never going to solve life's problems, all the while that we deny over one half of the reality which makes up life and nature itself. Higher dimensions and the reality of their being, their presence within us and around us is something that only the intentionally blind will try to deny. Almost every one of us has had an experience with something that today we call the supernatural and the paranormal. We must take the first step and redefine these experiences as being natural and normal. Then we must surrender to the laws of nature that govern them and seek to experience and understand them on their own terms and in their own ways. If we allow ourselves to release the shackles of lies that enslave our minds and our beliefs, we can be set free to explore the greater reality of a wonderful, natural, and normal universe in which we live and which lives inside of us. The way to get out there is to delve within each of ourselves, to explore, to experience, to understand our own minds with expanded consciousness. In this way, we will experience and thus know without doubt that the supernatural is not only real, but it is as natural as nature can be. And so too, we must say with regards to the paranormal, the more that we seek to experience these things in accordance to their own natural laws, the more we will discover just how normal the paranormal truly is. When we do this individually, we will enlighten ourselves individually. When enough of us as individuals do this as a collective, we can bring true healing and redemption to our planet and to our race. Deep down, we all know that this is what we need to be doing, and that indeed, doing just this is our individual and collective destiny. So, now is the best time to get busy and remain busy, learning how to expand consciousness and to see for oneself the reality and the truth that is out there waiting to be discovered and seen by those who are freeing themselves from the blindness, finally gaining the freedom of natural and normal sight. Only in this way will we succeed in making the supernatural to be natural and the paranormal to be normal. Well, that's it. I hope I've given you guys some things to think about. Hopefully you're not going to self-doubt yourselves, but that you will seek grounding, balance, even rationality, but not a rationality limited in the materialistic, but a rationality which is expanding within the context of everything that, Torah and spirituality teach us. So thank you again for listening. Please hit the like button if you are so inclined, and subscribe to our channel and help support our cause and all the rest of that stuff. Thanks all again. We'll see you all in our next time together. God's blessings. Shalom.